Welcome, everyone, to Unity Halton Peel on this 10th day of December, 2023. And it is the second of our series in interpreting Christmas. And one of the things that we did last week was I read you the story that's smushed together from Matthew and Luke, from the book that I'm using for this series called The Trip to Bethlehem. I've been enjoying rereading this and also remembering that Reverend Hypatia Hasbrook, who wrote this book, was one of my very first Unity teachers. And it's wonderful to go back and revisit the memories I have of learning from her and understanding the metaphysics of Christmas. So I have a question for everybody, whether you're on the Zoom call right now or you're watching later on Facebook or YouTube. How is Christmas like it ended? I'm seeing puzzled faces. That's a good sign. Because it has layers. And if you're a Shrek fan, double joke for that. So let's talk about how Unity looks at Christmas, because it's a little different than most traditional or mainline Christian organizations. And that is because we are who we are, and we have a different way of looking at the Bible. We use metaphysical interpretations. Now, here's the basic dictionary definition. It means, from the Greek, meaning literally the after the physical. So what is outside of objective experience. When we're talking in shorthand in Unity, we will talk about metaphysical Bible as being an example of the journey that is in the Bible as reflecting our own spiritual journey, as reflecting everything that we go through. And if you haven't read the Bible, no blame or shame. Some of us grew up in churches of origin where we read the Bible, so we come out with a good backing of it. Everything is in there. Birth, death, life, drunkenness, sexual stuff. It's all there. It's arguing with your family, arguing servant to master and master to servant. It's all there. All of our human experiences are in there. And so what it's about, it's not about looking at all the lists of so-and-so begat so-and-so begat so-and-so. It's where the stories are. The stories are what define us. The stories are what tell us is happening within ourselves. You know, it was a joke when I was at another employer that if somebody asked me how I was doing, I would say, me and Job, we're real tight right now. And those who were understanding what I was not saying was, I'm having a really rough time and nobody seems to be helping me. And I really feel like I'm being forgotten by God and things are just really uncomfortable right now. Thankfully, I don't have many of those anymore because I quit that job. It was toxic. But it was a way for me to express something. You could call it metaphysics. You could call it a metaphor. That's okay too. But what we do have in Unity is we have two resources of our co-founders' understanding of what this meant. And for me, getting into, especially the metaphysics of Christmas, was a big healing part of my spiritual journey early on, and continues to be. Every so often, I still find teachings and beliefs that I received as a child that I thought I had gotten rid of. I thought I'd done the forgiveness work on, and something happens and boom, I'm back to being a child again, feeling those feelings and needing to sit down and take myself, into a space and just work through those things. I maintain, as long as I am still in physical form, I'm not finished. I'm not complete. I'm not perfect yet. So we're all on this journey together, just in different expressions of it, because it would be really boring if we had all the same expressions and experiences. So how do we, how do we, as Unity folk, understand the Christmas story? As I've said, this was so healing for me because it took out the requirement that I had to think about Easter, or more specifically, Good Friday. That I could instead enjoy and embrace the joy of Christmas, the joy of a child being born. One of my friends became a grandma for the second time, and she sent me some pictures, and the joy in her face as that little one is snuggled into her is just amazing. And as a world, we rejoice in children. You know, that is what we use as our symbols for so many things. So let's talk about, having given you the story, and if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, go back to last week where I read the actual story so you can get your feet in on the ground. Let's start with the angels. So metaphysically, we believe that angels are divine ideas or messages. That does not mean that you can't believe in angels as actual beings. That's why I say Christmas is full of layers, because we have the layer of the physical, we have the layer of the historical, we have the layer of the literature. Notice I didn't say literal, I said literature. Good story. I mean, the Christmas story is a great story. There's lots of stuff in there, as we found out last week. But just from a metaphysical point of view, we have angels visiting. It's not just Gabriel visiting Mary and Joseph. We have the angels visiting Zachariah and Elizabeth. We have angels in the Hebrew scriptures visiting them. You will do this. This is what's coming up for you. And so oftentimes when I look at my life and I see when there's a big change, I can say, you know what? I could make an angel story for that. I could say I was visited by angels if I so chose, because that's what this symbolizes. That idea, I always say it's an angel thought when it's something that is huge and I want to say, what the fluff? Are you kidding me? That's not for me to do. Just like all the characters in the Bible who get visited by angels. Many of them basically say, are you kidding me? Or words to that effect. If you had told me when I quit my toxic job in 2017, that I would be on YouTube, I would be on Facebook, I would be doing live stream church services, not only for my home ministry of Halton, but across Canada and into the States, I would have told you were crazy. I'm a high introvert. And yet, here I am. And yet, my YouTube page shows that I have done a lot of talks in the last 6 years. So that was an angel message. That was a message of something greater than myself coming as an idea for me to ponder and think about and figure out how to work out. And it's taken baby steps. And here we are. Mary, in Unity Metaphysics, it's usually important to know whether the character is male or female. Now, I recognize that some folks in their lives choose to be non-binary, not identify one or the other. And I think I kind of get that because I'm a high intellectual person. So that's a very masculine trait metaphysically. And yet I present as female. So let's take those layers and just set them aside for a moment. And let's just look at this as a symbol. So Mary represents our emotional, feeling, intuitive nature. That part that knows what we know, and we can't explain it, but we just know it so deeply. Like I knew that I was going to be doing things I didn't think were possible. And here I am. She symbolizes the purified soul that has become highly intuitive and sensitive to inspiration from the Lord. That's a quote from Charles Fillmore, so he's using the traditional language. But that's that part, we could shake out the word Lord and say divine nature, intuitive self. We could change those words. That part of us that experiences something beyond the physical of ourselves, that understands at a different level. And I'm never sure whether it's a deeper level or a higher level, because both get used, but just that it's a level that is eternal and universal and beyond our sense consciousness. She has a direct revelation. We're told she had a visit from an angel, Gabriel, while she was awake, that she was not in a meditative state. She was awake and interacted with him. And this is important as we go into Joseph. Joseph, as I alluded to, is the intellectual thinking nature. It symbolizes that the mind must agree to the birth and then protect the process until it's ready to be born. Joseph is that part of you symbolically that when you get an idea, an angel moment or a what the fluff moment, that protects you and says to you, don't talk about it. Don't just go do quietly what needs to be done. Don't brag about it until it's ready to be birthed. Anyone else have an idea that they thought was really great and they talked about it and talked about it, and then it just kind of deflated and didn't happen? I've been there, done that. Learning not to do that. Learning to allow Joseph to be that reminder to hold the thoughts in until they're ready to be manifested, to express, to be in this sense consciousness world. As we learned last week, he has an indirect revelation. The angel appears in a dream. Why? Because the intellect would have been arguing with it had the discussion happened while Joseph was awake. As a highly intellectual person, I get this. I so get this, that some of my best ideas come while I'm asleep. That's just how they are. But we need to recognize that, yes, sometimes those things that come to us when we're not actively conscious, whether we're in a state of meditation or we're just kind of daydreaming or whatever, that thoughts and ideas that come to us in those states are as valid as if the thought had come to us while we were consciously interacting with ourselves. So this is an important part, that whole thing of it's important to have the intellect and the heart in alignment with each other. And as I said last week, referring to our 12 powers, which is Charles Fillmore, our co-founder's way of breaking down spiritual truths into more manageable chunks. Our faith faculty is up here in our head, in our brain, in the pineal gland, and our love and our understanding of intuitiveness is in our heart, in our love center. And when those two are in alignment, they can create this Christ child that brings the power of divine understanding. And that power is in our voice, in the root of our tongue, in the words that we can speak. You know, it's not that if you read the Bible, it doesn't tell us how tall Jesus was, how fat he was, what color his eyes were. It tells us what he spoke. Every miracle that he is credited with is a spoken miracle. Even if he didn't lay on our hands, there was a speaking of that. So we have the heart, Mary, we have the head, Joseph, and in the middle we have this Christ child with the power to create, the power to imagine, the power to express, the power to manifest. We're going to skip the child just for a moment. We're going to go to the shepherds. So they symbolize faith. They are intellect in harmony with God. So this gets into some discussion, and it's one of those layers that we could just set aside. But there is much to support that Jesus wasn't born in December. He was born in April, probably in the spring, which is when the ewes usually are lambing, and the shepherds would be there to make sure that there was no problems with the birth. But they understood that that's what they needed to do. They understood the cause and effect of, if I'm not there and my ewe gets into trouble, I could lose her and the baby. So they receive the news, they take action, they go to Bethlehem. Do we do that? Do we get, an inspiration and act on it? Or do we just kind of sit on it? Guilty of sitting on it. Oh, definitely. Definitely, especially if it calls me out to stretch myself beyond my comfort zone. Big time, big time. The Magi, they represent wisdom and resources of the soul. And they come from the East, symbolizing inner consciousness. So they're, whether or not the story happened as it's described, can you hear it? It doesn't matter. We can take these characters and we can use them to create a story about ourselves and about how we're understanding our own unfolding. Now, the gifts of the Magi. I just want to point out something that always makes me, I don't know, I kind of laugh at it, probably because one of my favorite carols growing up was We Three Kings. I mean, we loved doing those oh-ohs when we were kids. That was a lot of fun. The only reason we have three kings is because there were three gifts. Most translations say wise men from the East. It doesn't say how many. And somehow we've adapted that there were three because there were three gifts. Who knows? There could have been 12 and they all had these three gifts because they were symbolic and important. Who knows? For all we know, they might have had a camel load of supplies for the parents to, some food and things to celebrate and ensure that they had nutrition to keep this baby in. Who knows? But that's what I love about the layers that we can explore as we go through this Christmas story. So gold represents the riches of spirit. Frankincense represents the beauty of spirit. And myrrh, which was used in embalming, represents the eternity of spirit. And so can you hear a little shift there from how the song puts those into play? But rather that these were three expressions of our spiritual self in expression. That this was a symbol for these items. Let's talk about Herod for a bit. Herod, I never liked Herod, but I understand here. Herod represents the ruling will, the physical, the ego. Herod is that part of you when you hear a story, when you get an idea, and you're in your Mary complex symbol, and you're hearing it in your heart, and you're like, wow, that sounds really exciting. Yeah, I can get myself into that. I can feel the emotion about what it would feel like to do that or be that or engage in that aspect. This is why you need Joseph, because Herod will want to kill that idea. The ego is always in that place of thinking it's the best. Guilty as charged, definitely. When I've gotten myself in trouble, it's usually because my ego has gone forward first and I haven't paused and said, no, this is not an ego thing. This is a spiritual thing and it needs to be dealt with spiritually. I didn't read because who wants to talk about this at Christmas, but let's just briefly talk about Herod killing the innocents. The ego, that prideful part of ourselves, seeks to destroy that which is spiritual because it considers a threat to its power. And that can be harsh, I know. And I invite you to just kind of sit with yourself and see, is Herod showing up for you right now? Or if you get an idea, especially a what the fluff idea, that you guard against Herod. What did Joseph do? Joseph took his mother and the baby and fled to Egypt where it was safe. Egypt is where we always flee metaphysically because it is a place that has great gifts. So here we are, a little different take on the Christmas story, a little different take on the layers and not having to get into, did this really happen? Are these real people? Is this a narrative that combines a whole bunch of stories and whatever. But instead to say, okay, the Christ child in me is that expression of my divine nature in whatever format it takes. and accepting and protecting it and keeping aware of that self within me is what Christmas can be all about. And let's just take some time to meditate, to bring all that I've just talked about into ourselves. And just breathing into that space of the I am, those words that identify ourselves in our divinity. And just to say, I am ready to experience Christmas differently this year. I am ready to take on this cast of characters and identify them for who I am. I am ready to even take on Herod. I am ready to put my attention to the spiritual, to the gifts that are brought by focusing on that part of me that is not sense consciousness, that is not ruled by societal norms, but instead looks within to see the light that I truly am in this world, the light that I bring to this world, the gifts that I bring to this world. And as we know this for ourselves, we also know this for every other person on earth. You are the Christ child in expression. You bring to this world a light. You bring to this world your consciousness. And as the lights join together, wholeness and prosperity and peace reign. And let us take a few moments just to sit with those ideas in the silence. And in this acknowledgement of the layers of Christmas, the outer, the inner, the as yet unrevealed, we are so grateful. And so it is. Amen. Thank you. So part of this story was actually inspired because in our Advent booklet, there is a story or a piece called The Nativity in You, which actually refers back to the book that I've been basing this on. So I was kind of excited to see that the Hasbrook book is still in use. So for those of you who are watching this on Facebook or YouTube at a future date, a couple announcements to share with you as we move into the Christmas season. Our Advent series, based on the booklet, The Sweetest Christmas, continues on Wednesdays at 2 p.m. Eastern. It is being hosted by Canada's Licensed Unity Teachers, which is the level of credentialing that I have. And we're having a lot of fun discussing things about Advent and understanding the metaphysics and coming to a place of kind of a counterbalance to the commercialism and getting to know each other. We have folks from New Brunswick all the way through Vancouver Island. So it's a great opportunity to come. It's about 90 minutes. Come and share and be part of the circle. So we thank you in advance for your financial gifts to this ministry. You can pause the recording at this point and get the information that you need. And we are so grateful. Also, you can come to our website and sign up for our newsletter so you can find out what's happening, what's upcoming. my understanding is that we have got lots of speakers coming in 2024. They're already listed, and great to have you join us. As always, our prayer chaplain is on the call, and you can email her your prayer intention at praywithdiane@gmail.com. And it will be held in prayer by our prayer ministry in confidence, and then sent to Silent Unity, which is Unity's prayer ministry, which has been around for 130 years. And they will then hold that in prayer in confidence for another 30 days. Coming next year, new host orientation and training for spirit groups. This is a small ministry group that Unity Canada is facilitating. And it's a wonderful opportunity to meet folks not only across Canada, but from the US and elsewhere as well, and really come into a communion together. And that segues into, I will actually be leading one of the spirit groups starting in February, and we are going to talk about the Bible. And if you might have noticed, I'm kind of a Bible geek, and I'm really looking forward to sharing my geekiness with everyone who attends. If you go to unitycanada.org, you can find more information about both of these events. The time for renewal of our memberships. Thank you in advance for getting this in by the 19th. If you go to our website, there is more information there. Our tithe in part will be going to Eden's Care Center again. And we are also receiving donations on behalf of the Willow Foundation, which is local and will support people who are in long-term care facilities in the Halton Rail region. So, Halton Peel region. And with that, we bless and appreciate our children around the world, knowing that they too are the Christ child in expression, even on those days when one wants to just roll their eyes and say, why? We love and bless you. Children and youth of the world, youth of Unity and of the world, we love you, we bless you, and we appreciate you just the way you are. Covered in mud, covered in cookie frosting, however you are, we love you. And as we bring our gathering to a close, we join together with these thoughts. The light of God surrounds us. I am light. The love of God enfolds us. I am love. The power of God protects us. I am power. The presence of God watches over us. I am presence. Wherever we are, God is. I am divine. And as always, Sue Riley will sing us out.
Peace in my life is growing because I choose love. Love's always present, it's what I'm made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one tie that binds us, that can't be undone. I choose love. I choose love. Peace in my family is growing because I choose love. Let love be present, it's what we're made of. I choose love. We are a part of each other. We are one loving family, sharing one son. I choose love. what we